Good morning, good afternoon, happy Thursday. Welcome to our first episode of 2025 for Let's Build a HubSpot Super Admin with Lucy. Happy 2025, Lucy. How are you?
Hi, Chris. Hi, everyone. Happy 2025. I'm super excited to be starting this new year together. So, hope more and more people is going to be joining us this year and discussing a lot of new things coming.
Yes. Thank you for making the time and always sharing your perspective. I think we got an interesting one today because I've been bullish on Commerce Hub for a while, ever since like 2020 or 2021. I started playing with payment links inside of the organization I was at as a way to just make this experience of quoting small dollar items against like $200,000 pieces of equipment, that the same quoting process was happening, the same payment process was happening, and it's just like salespeople were telling me we're losing money on all these small dollar items because it takes so long to make quotes and get payments and things like that. Um, but watching it grow has been interesting, and I think it makes sense to start with what you've been mentioning to me before we started, and like what has been the challenge so far of like when you're talking to people about Commerce Hub in relationship to HubSpot, what are the most common challenges that you run into?
So, I think the first misconception, and it's related to the name, is that we think that Commerce Hub is related to an e-commerce, right? So we think about a card, we think about payments, we think about, I don't know, a lot of the process that you get in an e-commerce. And although part of those things could happen in Commerce Hub, how I see it better is more like a treasury or admin or financial hub, because we're talking about payments, we're talking about invoices, we're talking about payments links, quotes. Right now, it's included like in Commerce Hub. So we have a lot of this administrative part behind that. Sometimes we connect third-party tools, right? But I think it's more for the admin, and not the admin point of view, like we are HubSpot admins, but for the company team, the financial team in the company that is behind this, right? They want to know, they want to see, they want to map all the transactions happening in the company inside HubSpot or with HubSpot and third-party tools, right? So I think that is the first weird thing. Of course, again, like everything with HubSpot, these don't fit everyone. Not all business models work right now with Commerce Hub. For some companies, it's good. For some companies, it's still not the best option. We use it internally in our agency, but I'm not the biggest fan because it's still a work in progress. And I was talking about like my hair is still a work in progress. um, but it has a lot of potential. I think that, as you said, this could be a good year. um, Whenever we think about the markets or the businesses that could be more advanced in the usage of Commerce Hub, I think we're thinking about US first, right? So United States is the more advanced on these things because of the payment methods and taxes and legal stuff. I think is easier. I think also, if you're thinking about SaaS companies, that you have subscriptions, that you have monthly revenue that you can do automatically, that you can put as a subscription in HubSpot and will be invoiced and paid automatically. That is a great case of usage of Commerce Hub. But when you're thinking about big companies and when you're thinking about companies outside US that cannot connect, for example, with Stripe, or cannot do the currently payment methods, is not so easy. Or when you're thinking about international companies that have a lot of teams in a lot of countries, invoices in a lot of currencies, and a lot of different payment methods, it's still from the admin's point of view. And now I'm thinking about us, the HubSpot CRM admins. It's not an easy thing to set up. We still need to go outside and use other apps like QuickBooks or third-party apps and connect that into HubSpot and try to visualize from HubSpot information. So a lot of different scenarios and a lot of lovers and haters of Commerce Hub.
Yeah, yeah. I think this has always been the double-edged sword of HubSpot is like making these things easily accessible. But then when you see the word invoice
Mhm.
and you're in SaaS, uh, you might have a different expectation of what that means versus if you're in manufacturing or a different industry. And what's been interesting is that it's been challenging, I think, because HubSpot is in the middle, or it's trying to serve these various audiences, or it's just focused on one, in this case, SaaS. But since there's so many financial requirements
Mhm.
like that basically rules or standards to follow that HubSpot hasn't had to do before, it's a much more complex like setup. And this is, for example, why we haven't been able to delete invoices until very recently, because there's a whole audit trail that you have, and there's financial requirements to have ultimate visibility on the financials and not necessarily the customer. And why I think this is powerful and everybody should be paying attention is that, like, if you really want a unified view of your customer, and this is why HubSpot often has a hard time, like, uh, mattering to some teams, because that financial view is more important than anything else when they think about what I want to know about our customers. And if I've got to go get that in the accounting system or the ERP, I've got to start there, and then we bring data from HubSpot into there. So I think that's step one, as far as like we should all be excited about this true unified view is is possible now. It's possible now just from uh, the concept of creating space for the data to be in HubSpot, right?
Yeah, and let's just remember that in the past, we might have been using a custom object and we might have been doing it all manually or through a custom API or integration. So, right now, having this possibility, and I really like what you said. So, having this possibility of having a visual, a complete visual of the clients and how you can see an invoice related with a payment, related with a deal, everything in the same place. I know if that invoice was paid or not, if it's due or not. So right now we have access to a lot more things. So although it's still a work in progress, I think we have moved forward a lot of steps here. And though it's not perfect, I think it's a great new tool for a lot of clients, right? At some point, even though if it matches 100% with your needs or not, I think that at one point this is going to be great to have it at least in HubSpot, right?
Yeah. And I hope that it's helpful for admins out there, because like it's there's a lot of nuance to
Mhm.
this conversation, because if you're not making it clear that we just want to see it, like we're not trying to replace the accounting system or the ERP. HubSpot can't and shouldn't do a lot of these things, like
Mhm.
creating the data and maintaining these financial records that can get audited and things like that, especially like once we start talking about outside the US. Willem uh, Roos was just mentioning to me, like in the Netherlands, they have very specific requirements for what an invoice is, and it's not the invoice that you can create in HubSpot right now. So understanding that impact to the audience, like just because it works in the US doesn't mean it can work, internationally right now. I think they've come a long way, of course. but there's still some work to do, and that's why I was excited to hear about the cash flow acquisition, because in from my perspective, usually that happens because there's some kind of infrastructure like already built, and they're probably already following a lot of these financial rules, and like you just bring that in and now craft it into the HubSpot, platform. It happens a lot faster because at the end of the day, we all, well, the people that are invested in HubSpot every day, quotes and line items and that whole infrastructure, um, has been kind of a pain in the ass for for a little bit, and it's something that has to get better to support true like CPQ functionality. Um,
Yes.
so I don't know what you're seeing on that front.
I've heard a lot about, still, of course, a lot of countries had different needs about invoices, about receipts, and this is still going to be a challenge because HubSpot cannot comply with all countries around the world. So that is still going to be something. It's going to move forward, but it's still going to be something to keep working on. But you made me remember that most of the frustrations with forecasting when we're thinking about Sales Hub, they come from subscriptions and they come from recurrent payments. And this was always the weak spot in HubSpot because it was very difficult to report on, and the way it was built, it was never perfect. It had a lot of defects, and I don't know why it was kind of like forgotten by HubSpot. But I think it was because, as you was saying, they knew the way they built it. It was not the way it was going to work. So right now, as you were saying, with with the new acquisition, I think they are starting from a fresh base that is properly done, and that is going to change a little bit how this works. So this is why sometimes people, I think, get confused with this part of Commerce Hub and the subscriptions and the invoice and the payments with the sales part. And even though they are connected at different point of views, right? So we are talking about more from an administrative or financial team seeing Commerce Hub, and not from the sales point of view, right? So sales is still going to sell, sorry, and it's still going to be working on Sales Hub and on the pipelines. But the connection with this information is going to reach a lot of the teamwork, right? Because at some point, a lot of salespeople is still in a lot of companies, they still get commissions for clients that are still working with the company. So you would like to know when, for example, a client of yours that is in a subscription for 24 months stop paying, right? Because you are going to be aware that, hey, your customer hasn't paid the last two invoices. Be aware that they might be about to churn, right? So these are the things that at some point you couldn't have previously in HubSpot, but now you might be able to have, right? So actually, I have a potential customer that we're presenting a plan, and they have a pretty big Excel file with a lot of calculations. But in the end, this file is about current customers, the allocated capacity for each, the subscriptions, how are they going to be billed monthly, if they are active, if they are inactive, if they are past due, all of the information that they are now asking me, are we going to be able to have this in HubSpot? Right now, I'm dissecting that Excel file and say, okay, yes to this, yes to this, yes to this, no to this. Because, for example, for resources, because they are a human resources recruitment company, they have the resources, the name, and everyone on another software, and they don't want to have it in HubSpot. So, okay, so we are going to be able to know if they are available or not, but if we don't have them inside HubSpot, even though we have an integration or that we have a custom card or whatever we want to build, you're still going to be working that outside HubSpot. But all the other parts that we already mentioned, the allocated hours, so we could start working with that in HubSpot. We might choose a lot of these things that we were talking about, subscriptions, and we are going to have, of course, custom objects, right? But up to this point, they couldn't have done it in HubSpot. So it's only now that we can start having that conversation about, okay, you can stop using that Excel file. We are going to start tracking this information in HubSpot, and we're going to start building those type of reports in HubSpot. At least most part of it, right? I'm not pretending to replace 100% that Excel file because it has a lot of other um, bands and a lot of other calculations. But I think this is possible now with HubSpot. And you don't need to have enterprise. Of course, if you have enterprise, you have a little bit more things available, but you now have it for most licenses. So a lot of customers are going to be able to benefit from this, right?
Yeah. And you reminded me of um, something I want to show. I wasn't planning to show it, but like the recency of all this, right? Like, so no matter which part of the ecosystem you're in, like it's a fair assumption to make that the person you're talking to doesn't have any idea what is going on with Commerce Hub, including, unfortunately, internal HubSpotters. Um, and Allison from the Commerce Hub team made a great post in the community uh, a few weeks ago that just walks through. Like 2024 was a big year. I think 2025 is going to be even bigger with the implementation of cash flow, right? But the as everybody's been focused on, AI and Breeze and like customizability of HubSpot. Meanwhile, Commerce Hub has been pushing forward as well. So just a real quick walkthrough, like all these in all these invoices updates, including um, I don't know if it's on this list, but they're starting to manage sales tax in a way
Yeah.
that, and if you're an admin and thinking about why, like making the case for why you start to do this in HubSpot, like especially if you've only been a HubSpot admin and you haven't dealt with all these other systems, like anybody who's been a part of an Avalara sales tax like implementation, it's a nightmare. It's terrible. And like the reason, just like HubSpot providing a unified view on the marketing and sales side is a differentiator, right? The same differentiators apply here in that these systems have never done this stuff very well at all.
Yeah.
It's always been hard to see this information, which is why visibility is like needs to lead the conversation. Understanding that you're going to have the same information in both places, right? But there's a specific reason for that, right?
And before, when the first steps with Commerce Hub was the integration with Stripe, right? So you were able to collect payments with Stripe, and actually Stripe was able to do the invoice and the receipt and all the other part. So right now, a lot of those things migrated into here, and HubSpot made it available. So, and it was pretty basic stuff, but crucial stuff for businesses. So it's really funny because you said when we're thinking about AI and we get amazed and dazzled with all of the new things, we forget that are the day-to-day things that really matter and that really made our work easier and lighter. So when you are able to see these things more organized or to access it without so many headaches, it's pretty game changing. So I really like AI, but let's just see the things that are part of our day to day and how can we make that easier. So yeah, I agree with you that this year is going to be a great year. So this team is actually working on this. The new acquisition, of course, is going to help a lot more, but I think
Yeah.
sometimes different teams in HubSpot move forward faster than other ones. So let's just say, of course, AI is going to be the topic for the next 10 years. It's still going to be for a long time. But this thing should also be a topic because it's the core for every business. Okay, yeah, fantastic. We have a sales team, we have a marketing team generating leads. They move forward, they they have verbal agreements about new clients, but what's next? So this is the important part, I think, that we should
Yeah.
all be talking about, right?
Right. Well, it closes the loop for me. Like this is what makes it full platform. Like you, if you can't speak to the money that you're already getting, right? And this is the difference between, forecasting based on pipeline and forecasting based on MRR as an example, right? And that's where you lose the uh, you lose the debate very quickly inside of organizations when you just can't speak to that part because that's the lifeline of the business, right? Like we've got to serve customers and they've got to pay us. And if we don't have visibility of that, all sales teams want it, right? But it's been challenging to get it into HubSpot unless you're doing like some kind of, you know, ERP or accounting integration that was never really built for HubSpot. So that means you gotta like the teams that own the accounting systems and the ERP systems have final say for how it's gonna go. And in most cases I've seen, they're not usually that concerned about the customer experience as they design that system, right?
Yes, and I can tell as a former accountant, as as working in both teams and being in the financial part, nobody talks about the discussions when the numbers don't agree and don't match between what the sales team says that they sold and what accountancy or admin or financial team says they have invoiced and what they have actually received as payments. So we have three different numbers: what you think you sold, what you really sold, at least what you invoiced, and what you're getting in the bank account. And these three numbers almost never match. And this is one of the biggest discussions internally, and they always fight. And we have had cases of clients that they were actually the difference between the invoicing and what the sales team said they sold on the closed won deals was very different. And we discovered that the sales team was changing the deals after they were closed. So we had to do a very complex programmable automation with Operations Hub to discover every time a closed deal was modified so that we can um, advert the sales manager and the accounting team that this was not going to match because someone changed it without authorization. So this was a pretty big work because it was pretty important for the company and it had legal implications because none of the sales team should be able to change a deal once it was closed. So how could we detect that? So they went changing it so that then the commissions were calculated differently. So there's a lot of risk here that we're talking about. So sometimes we think about, oh yeah, the tool is so cool, but when we think about the implications for a business, the things that we are talking about are pretty serious, right? So one thing is what the sales team agree with a client. Another thing is what you get to invoice, and another thing is what you get paid for. So these three things, ideally they should match, but almost never they match. And this is the big pain for companies because they don't get to have that clarity on the three different places. So as an accountant, I can say that having one place to access that I can cross match information, that I could track everything, at least I can see the deal, what did they talk about, what what did they offer, if that price is the one that I have in my books, that should be the one for that service or for that project, the one that I had invoiced, the one that I'm receiving in the bank, or if not, what is the money that is still missing that the client needs to pay. So having that possibility to see all that, that's amazing, because in the past I used to do that manually, conveying a lot of systems, because I used to work with Microsoft Dynamics, with SAP, with a lot of different, when I used to work on that field. I had to compare everything, and then I had to put everything in a cash flow or everything in an Excel, just to report to the general manager. So most of my month was trying to conciliate all of those numbers, and it was really difficult to make them match. So this is a big step forward, having that visibility first, and gaining control over that, those differences that are normal, they are still going to happen, of course. Ideally we would like not for them to appear or to exist, but that's a reality. Companies work like that. Sometimes we think that the tax is going to be one, but then the company was in another county, so we had to apply another tax. So then we didn't change the deal because we thought it was, I don't know, a lot of things can happen. But
Yeah.
at least gaining visibility, that is always the thing that we say with HubSpot. The first step is gaining visibility so that you can detect things and make decisions. I think this is the most important part, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is like that situation you described where, like, and I get it from a sales perspective, at least when you're assuming positive intent. Um, like, that's the true difference between, marketing and sales and everything that comes after closed one, is that it's meant to be this flexible clay, like, let's do what the customer wants, let's figure out, let's not create so much structure that we can't create a solution for the customer and get them to buy. But then as soon as closed one hits, you can't edit anything. Like, and I've said, like, that's why line items are the way they are. Like, they're not meant to be flexible after closed one, right? And I think that's where orders are going to come in as an object, because most systems that are able to report on different levels of revenue, like you described, revenue realized, revenue booked, like, use an order object, or something like it, to be like the headquarters of what's happening with that contract or monetized relationship, subscription plan, right? And I'd say as an admin, start to open your mind, especially if you do revenue reporting in some kind of way, like you've invested time in all of the revenue analytics and all this stuff. I think that's the biggest challenge for the HubSpot team specifically, is all of this stuff has been tied to a deal, right? And now we've got revenue coming in from invoices, subscriptions, payments, and payment links that don't have to have a deal. And I've struggled myself, with trying to create a visible picture of revenue without just recreating deals for everything that didn't have one, right? So know that help is on the way if you've been struggling with that, but you got to find a way to detach yourself from the deals, in my opinion. And that's where, if you can kind of look at it as the deal is a sales management object, it's meant to manage sales, right? A sales process.
Yes.
If people are just coming in and they're buying off of e-commerce, or it's a renewal, or there was no sales process, right, to manage, then maybe you don't need a deal. Maybe it goes right to order. And I know that's like heresy, according to some in HubSpot land. But that's going to be very helpful in making the transition from marketing and sales only revenue picture to this true revenue, like, 360-degree view. Um, and I do want to mention one more thing, like, because you mentioned matching, like being able to match these numbers.
Hmm.
And that was a challenge I experienced at my last in-house role where, first of all, I'll say the most likely true wizards of Excel are almost always in accounting, right? um, and the CFO had his master sheet, right? Because he couldn't trust data from the ERP, from any system he was using to do it the way that he wanted to do it, to see all these forecasting like versions to help support resourcing the business, right? And he wanted me to make it match. Like he wanted me to show something exactly like it in HubSpot. And I was like, no, like, no, like you can't, like, why would you even want me to do that? Right. But that is a conversation that we need to get good at. There's a good reason to have visibility over here and visibility over here that don't necessarily have to match like 100% as long as we understand like why they don't. Right.
Yeah, and I think we were used to talk to the CFO and to the general manager of companies. So let's implement HubSpot and let's do this and let's see revenue. But the way we have seen it so far, revenue wasn't completed, right? Because we were always talking from the sales point of view, and we were not considering taxes, and we were not considering cost, and we were not considering a lot of things that we might not be able to consider 100% so far, but at least we start getting a few steps closer to that, right? So most of the cases, and I was thinking about what you were talking about, I think 80% of the cases when we see people exporting information, especially sales information, to Excel, is because they need to send it or share it with the accountancy team. So we were already doing this, trying to share and match the information manually and outside HubSpot. So if we're able to start doing this in a more automatic way, in a more organized way, in a trackable way, having it inside HubSpot, of course, they might need to go outside then and do their own tax part on another side, on another place. But at least start having it aligned in a place. This is going to add more value to the managers, right? To the stakeholders. Because so far it was only, actually, now that I'm thinking of, if we're only seeing sales for the number that we see on a deal, that's not real. So unless you don't have costs, unless you don't pay taxes, unless you don't do anything else, that is going to be real. But that's not the reality for 99% of the companies. So if we just want to see the sales process and take it as revenue, that's not real money that is coming into your pockets, because then you have a lot of other numbers to do over that. So in the case of the lead that I'm working on that I had to present on Monday, one of the one of the things that they want to calculate is, okay, they want to know sales, they want to calculate taxes, they want to do the whole EBITDA number. So are they going to be able to do that in HubSpot? I don't know. I'm going to tell you the next time, but but I think those are the conversations that they want to know. Can I recreate this? Can I do this inside HubSpot? Can I get at least the information so that it gets auto completed in this file, so that then I can continue with all the other numbers, and then I can arrive easier and more trustful that the numbers that I'm seeing are the ones that there should be. Because let's not forget that when we switch between I don't know, uh, softwares, between tabs in our computer, you can always put a number wrong. When I used to work in accountancy, one of my old bosses says, you know what happens when you have $1 differences in your balance? And I said, you corrected. And he said, no, it could be $1, but it could be 1 million on one side and two and 100,099 on the other side. So this is not a joke. You think that it's a one, but this could be a big problem, right? So if we can minimize the human error of doing a lot of things manually, again, sometimes we don't win the whole war, we just win little battles. So right now, minimizing the error, having more alignment between the things that sales team is doing and the things that the accountancy or financial team is doing, that is going to be a win for sure. So we are minimizing error, we are saving time for the teams, we are helping align everything, have the whole story, the 360 that we were talking about of customers inside the portal. So this is huge. I think this is going to be a game changer more than AI, people.
Well, it's gonna, at the very least, it's gonna make AI that much better because you're gonna have this complete picture. And when we say things like, I want to talk to my top 10 customers today, or all of these scenarios that people are throwing out about how they want to interface with AI, the revenue part of that, like if that's not clear, you're not going to get, the results that you're looking for.
Well, let's just imagine that we arrive, let's just fast forward a couple of years, that we can ask Copilot, can you identify clients that have a high churn risk because of getting due on their payments, because of skipping invoices, because of, for example, having a period where they don't buy anything from us? So you have 1 month, other month, other month, and then you have 3 months that they don't buy anything from us. So those are the things that AI is going to help us. But AI needs the information. So if we still don't have a complete information in the CRM, the things that we can see, or the decisions or the assumptions that AI is going to do, are not complete, right? So for example, the other day I was playing around with AI generating a plan for a client. So it was pretty good. It gave me a list of things that we could do, but he couldn't actually know how much time it was needed for each one of those tasks. So when I asked him to put it in a timeline, it put anything, I don't know, 10 months, because as it couldn't know the real time a task could really consume for someone, it was actually not straightforward. So again, the guidance of AI could be good, but the more information that we have and that we give is going to be better to make decisions. And again, AI is just going to do the same thing that we do. It's going to look for information, identify patterns, see the things that are happening, see the things that are not happening, and just make suggestions of what we should do. But the
Yeah.
first step is having everything integrated and have the information complete. And let's just not forget about human error or human things that shouldn't happen, like voiding invoices and changing things and invoicing in the past. Those things that a lot of humans are used to do that shouldn't. The software is going to start putting some limits, because as in taxes, you cannot do, for example, today is January 9th. I cannot do an invoice from December. That's it. December is closed. I shouldn't be able to do it, right? But we know in some countries are more flexible, especially in Latin America and, and not so formal countries. This is pretty normal to have people doing invoices in the past. But maybe the software is not going to allow this, or maybe at some point it could, but it shouldn't, right?
Right.
So again, this is not going to fit a lot of cultures, a lot of countries with different ways of working, with different taxes, with different ways of doing things. But I think it's a good idea to start seeing it sometimes. This helps companies to standardize, to professionalize, to start doing things in a different way and not the way that they were used to do it. And I can say that because I see it a lot. I've seen it a lot in Latin American clients, that they're not used to follow structure and to follow rules and procedures. So when HubSpot do the things this way that are like, it might seem kind of hard that we cannot change it a lot. It's kind of good because we're putting them like putting the elephant through the door, but it's like trying to make them gain some knowledge on how to do things, right? So I see
Yeah.
that as a big opportunity for a lot of clients.
Yeah, for sure. And that's where, like, there's not another reason it's not like the HubSpot that we all have come to enjoy as far as how flexible it can be and how it's hard to make, it's harder to make mistakes that have a real like impact that you can't like walk it back and just redo it. Like even if you send out, the email blast that you made a mistake on, you can just send another one and say sorry, right? Like you send out invoices that have mistakes, like really bad things, can happen. And there's a lot of risk associated with that. So I'll say like step zero, I think for most admins I know is to just educate yourself. And um, this whole revenue operations, first of all, if you think that's still a buzzword, like just don't like it's coming to a HubSpot near you, whether you've embraced it or not. Um, but this specific section within this course of how to speak the language of, finance, I learned a ton when I first took this in 2020 or 21, I think, just from this section alone. And even if it's not the exact way your business does it, I guarantee the financial teams, the CFO, whoever's in charge of the books will start to appreciate you if you show that you're starting to learn, like, and you're not just coming at them with leads and MQLs and SQLs and pipeline and all this stuff that they've heard for years, but they know like their system of truth. Like, because it's unfortunate, but you need to embrace the fact that there's different labels and different names for the same kinds of things that we've been thinking about in HubSpot for a long time. They just call it differently in accounting systems and ERPs. And that's where you as an admin, if you can have that awareness, you can be the bridge, you can be the translator. And all of a sudden HubSpot has a new value, inside of the company, and you can start to help, users. So this is one of my favorite courses. But this section in particular, if you don't have, I think we've got like, I think it's like 6 hours total. If you don't have that, or you want to start breaking it up, this section in particular, if you just want to start learning about how the rest of your business talks about this stuff, like this is a great section to start with.
Yeah, I think that we have discussed in the past that a super admin, and we actually discussed and talk a lot about this in the bootcamp, that a super admin should should understand or should be willing to understand the whole business, right? It's not just knowing how to, I don't know, create a new user in the CRM or changing a permit or, I don't know, creating a landing page. It's just like knowing how to implement or make the portal or the HubSpot portal be more flexible for the business, right? So it's like, as you said, you might not understand about invoicing or accountancy, but you can try to speak to the team and understand their needs and understand how that can be possible in the CRM, if it can be, if not, what are the options. I see the role of the admin always like that. You don't always have to have the answer or to be able to implement it. You just need to know the options, right? And yeah, that I was going to
And
say another
yeah,
point.
we'll be able to facilitate the conversation. Like, because what you don't want to do is see that invoices exist in HubSpot now and then go tell your accounting team, oh, we can start invoicing out of HubSpot now.
Yeah.
It's like, don't do that. Right. So just create some awareness for yourself
Yeah.
and, you know, um, help your team understand, right, that there's value here. This is how we could use it. Right. And then help them understand how their processes might benefit. Cause I tell you, and, um, I've seen accounting teams and CFOs in particular get on board with doing stuff in HubSpot faster than any other team in the business, because when you can smooth out communications related to getting paid, the collections list doesn't get as long and it gets easier and you get paid faster. And finance teams love that part of it. right? And of course, communication is such an important part of that, right? So we're talking about more than just sending out like, hey, your invoice is past due. Like earlier this or last year, there was a CFO in a meeting, and he said like, oh, like how do you communicate with customers like about invoices? And it's like, oh yeah, notification goes out, and it's like, no, that's not communicating. Like customers are getting like 100 emails a day, and like just once a month that says, oh, you haven't paid this bill yet. Oh, nobody wants to be past due. It's just they're not seeing this stuff, right? And I think your cat's trying to send a message there that we're going a little long.
I think he's
But
pretty interested in this.
yeah, yeah,
No, but I think you made me remember that the other day a client was asking me, I would like to have a better segmentation of my clients list because we would like to invite some of our top clients to trips and to send them gifts and to, but let's imagine that you have a segmented list about your clients, right? But how would you know if they are paying to you or not? You might be inviting someone for a trip in, I don't know, in Jamaica, and that person hasn't paid your invoices in, like, I don't know, 6 months. So you should be aware of those things, right? Customer success should be aware of when a client is about to churn or when they're having problems, if we should adjust our services or I don't know, anything. So it's not only a financial thing, it's a whole 360 in the company thing. So this conversation is pretty important for everyone, for marketing, for sales, for customer success, for admin or financial teams. Of course, some of them are the ones that are going to be doing it daily, but from the admin's point of view, this is something that is going to help and enrich the database that we have and what we can do with that information. Because again, whenever we say that we integrate something, that we create a new object, or that we have a new information in the CRM, it needs to have a purpose. It's not that we're going to have it because it is. Why do we want to have invoices in HubSpot? Why do we want to have payments in HubSpot? So those are the real questions. It's not only that can we, it's what are we going to do with that information? And those are the things that I think a super admin should know, and to know what is the information that we can have for each one of those. What are we going to do? Can we create lists? Can we create workflows? Can we create internal notifications for the team? Can we create reports? Can we create custom cards to visualize information? So there's a lot of things that we can do with that information. um, for example, the other day, yesterday, someone asked in the community, I see the standard card about invoices in my records, but it's just a list of the invoices made. But I would like to see the total amount invoiced to that client. So I said, okay, you cannot do that with the standard card of invoices because the standard card is going to show all the invoices there. But if you would like to have the summatory, or for example, the summatory by deal, this can be done in a custom card, right? Or you can build a report and put it in a custom card. So there are ways that we can handle that information that admins need to know how to use, right?
yeah.
And I think
You
those
said
are
the
pretty
magic word.
interesting things. Yeah.
Said the magic word for a lot of people right now too and that's an enrichment. Guess
Yes.
what? Guess what? Breeze and Zoom Info and all the other systems that you're looking to enrich your data. None of that's going to have revenue information from your business. So if we're
No.
talking about, if you say you want enriched records for your sales team or your marketing team, like start here. This is why I always say like everybody looks towards these external sources. Meanwhile, you've got a gold mine of data inside your organization that you're not even using.
I'm
I
more
think we should
drastic.
have,
I'm more drastic. I think everyone is expecting the miracle outside and is not willing to do the hard work inside. So enrichment It's a both ways thing. It's not only that we would like to connect something magical that brings us information. We need to enrich our database ourselves internally. So we need to complete the information. I've seen a lot of portals that you might do an awesome onboarding, an awesome implementation, but people are not completing the data. People are not completing the properties. People are not completing the basic information that you need to have. And why are you willing AI to complete that? Why do you want something magical to happen when it's your job, right? So, but well, that's another conversation.
Yes, I
But
think
again,
we should have it. Like, I think it would be helpful to go through. Like, these are all the ways that, like, all the data types that actually enrich, a record, and where you could get those data pieces from. So it sounds like a good next episode, honestly, because I know Breeze is a hot top. Breeze intelligence is a hot topic. We lost HubSpot insights. Boohoo. Uh, Lots to be discussed there. But yeah, I think we're gonna wrap for today. Um, Awesome to get back to this. I missed everybody in Let's Build over the holidays, and um, thank you for sharing your knowledge today, Lucy.
thank you. And thanks everyone for hearing us, our different points of view.
Yes, indeed. That's the power of this content. We hope, at least you go and check out the RevOps certification if you haven't yet. Look for those opportunities. Start to click on that commerce section of the navigation and start to, like, there's so many good pages in there that tell you about what those objects can do for a business. So lots of opportunities. Find them and let's grow. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye bye.
Awesome.
So Pepito is very